Here's why I've come here, Mr. Prime Minister. I would say this. As far as major world leaders go, you've got significant clout. And I'm gonna be real with you, it's a lot of the looks. In comparison to some of these world leaders, there are some straight uncles walking around. We got some uggos. They don't carry themselves like you. A lot of them remind me of my friends' dads. So I'm gonna show you some photos. We're playing a game here.
Okay.
You have to tell me, is this a world leader or is this my friend's dad?
Okay.
World leader or my friend's dad?
I believe that might be a world leader.
That is correct. This is Ashraf Ghani, the president of Afghanistan. There we go.
There we go. Yep.
Yes?
Yep. No, I've met him a couple times. He's a thoughtful guy.
Yeah. His government is currently in the midst of a sexual harassment scandal, so. World leader or my friend's dad?
I'm going with your friend's dad.
That is correct. This is my best friend's dad, Iqbal. He has 3 hard-boiled eggs every morning, and he also introduces himself by name on every text. He says, hello, this is Iqbal. I hope you're doing well. Here we go. World leader or my friend's dad?
I think that's your friend's dad.
No, this is Lenin Moreno, the president of Ecuador.
Ah, there you go.
When you meet Lenin, it's going to be super awkward, Mr. Prime Minister.
I'm just worried about Ecuador-Canada relations now.
Last but not least, do you have any questions for me?
How are you planning on justifying your job to your kids later?
Did you talk to my dad before this interview? We are talking about Canada. And the reason I recently met with Prime Minister Trudeau is that Canada's federal election is next month. Justin Trudeau is up for re-election, and what happens won't just affect Canada. This election has global consequences. Canada has a multi-party parliamentary system, which means a lot of people are coming for the crown right now. But Trudeau's main opposition is the leader of the Conservative Party, Andrew Scheer, who looks like the doll from The Conjuring, which is not a good look. I'm gonna be real. And it's even worse when you're going up against the Justin Trudeau. I mean, look, this is the only time I've ever agreed with Ivanka. She wants him like he's a job she's not qualified for. And it's a family affair. Did you guys see what happened at the G7? Yeah. That Trudeau magic hit Melania. She's looking at him and she's just like, I hear you accept refugees. By the way, they sees we love him too. You know what it is, he gets us. That last guy wasn't Trudeau, but you believed it. I saw you guys, you were like, oh yeah. I guess he can sing Afghan love ballads. He's pretty worldly. Now, it makes sense why the world has fawned over Trudeau. He's not just handsome, he's political royalty. This dude's dad was prime minister back in the day, and it's not fair. Canada got a Calvin Klein model for a leader. Meanwhile, we got a dumpy sexual predator who looks directly at solar eclipses. Now, Trudeau made it a point to have a gender-balanced cabinet. He's welcomed over 100,000 refugees to Canada with open arms. His economic policies have helped lift more than 2% of Canada's population out of poverty. And most importantly, he made climate change one of his signature issues, even calling for the Paris Agreement to be more aggressive. He was the dream politician for the left. He's like if the Green New Deal had piercing blue eyes and wanted to read your poetry. You'd be like, yes, Justin, read it. So in a country like Canada, you would think Trudeau's re-election would be a landslide. But you'd be wrong.
Well, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is dealing with a growing scandal.
The scandal that erupted inside his cabinet now threatens to drown the entire administration.
Trudeau is being accused of pressuring his former Attorney General to cut a deal with a company facing corruption charges.
Trudeau denies any wrongdoing, but his popularity is sliding.
Asked which federal party leader they believe is the most ethical, Justin Trudeau lags behind with almost 17%.
Okay, that's rough for Trudeau. But how does my man Jagmeet Singh only have 6%? He has no scandals. People in Winnipeg are like, I don't trust him. I don't know why. I just can't put my turban on it. Finger, I meant finger. Now, this scandal, known as the SNC-Lavalin affair, has been devastating for Trudeau. And the Liberals went from having a huge lead to being neck and neck with Conservatives. Here's what happened. In 2015, the RCMP, Canada's FBI, charged an engineering company called SNC-Lavalin with corruption and fraud for allegedly bribing Libyan officials, which included Muammar Gaddafi's son, Saadi Gaddafi, who looks like he's about to lose a Latin Grammy. Now, Libyan Carlos Santana allegedly spent a bunch of that money on luxury yachts, because when you're rich and you look like that, you either spend it on yachts or you get your kids into USC. And after SNC got caught, they lobbied Trudeau's office to avoid criminal prosecution. And here's where things went sideways. This February, Trudeau's Attorney General testified that Trudeau and his staff pressured her to help SNC avoid criminal prosecution. And when she didn't play ball, Trudeau demoted her, replaced her with a man, and eventually kicked her out of the party, which perfectly captures why women are skeptical of male feminists. Right? You first meet them, they're wearing a pussy hat, and then one girl rejects them, and they're like, women don't belong in Ghostbusters. Oh, and remember when Trudeau said he didn't do anything wrong? Well, a couple weeks ago, Canada's ethics commissioner said, yeah, you did.
Canada's ethics watchdog has ruled Prime Minister Justin Trudeau violated the Conflict of Interest Act.
Facing a damning assessment of his actions, the Prime Minister today acknowledged mistakes were made.
I assume responsibility for everything that happened in my office. But at the same time, I can't apologize for standing up for Canadian jobs.
Are you serious, JT? You apologize all the time. We have the receipts.
My apologies for my behavior.
I completely apologize.
I withdraw that word and apologize. I apologize and apologize again for the comments I made. They lacked respect. I lost my temper. For that, I unreservedly apologize.
Come on, man. You can't walk into Parliament looking like Puss in Boots. You're like, I'm sorry. Now, back to my cunning swordplay. So officially, Trudeau got a yellow card for this scandal, but politically, his approval rating has been cut in half from 65% to 32%, which is actually lower than Trump's right now. Yeah, one scandal and Canada's like, whoa, this is too much. Meanwhile, America's like, he partied with a sex trafficking pedophile. Let's hear the man out. Now, it's weird to think of a Canadian scandal involving corruption, bribery, and Libya. The SNC scandal doesn't fit with our image of Canada or Justin Trudeau. That's why I wanted to interview him. And that's also what I want to talk about tonight. The two sides of Canada. Canada, much like its prime minister, is a lot more complicated than you think. Take immigration. One of the things we love about Canada is how welcoming they are to refugees. In 2018, they resettled more refugees than any other country. And when Trump was trying to ban Muslims from the United States, Trudeau wrote the tweet heard around the world.
Prime Minister Trudeau pointedly tweeted, "To those fleeing persecution, terror, and war, Canadians will welcome you. Regardless of your faith, diversity is our strength." And then he added the hashtag, "Welcome to Canada."
Okay, that's beautiful. But today, that's not exactly how the country feels. In a recent poll, 57% of Canadians said they don't want Canada to accept more refugees than their current levels. And in Quebec, where a quarter of Canadians live, they recently passed a quote-unquote secularism law.
Bill 21 prevents public servants from wearing any religious symbols like Muslim head coverings and Sikh turbans.
Basically, it's take off your scarf if you want to continue and work as a teacher. And for me, this is out of the question.
I'm very proud of the bill, and I think it represents values, our values, and it's important.
Okay, Bill 21 is legalized discrimination. And Monsieur Values here is acting like it's only about enforcing secularism. That's bullshit. It's about denying people their right to free expression. Also, Quebec, you can't talk about secularism when your flag kinda has a cross in it. Look, you can say it's a tribute to cubicles, but come on, it's pretty Christian. By the way, I'll be honest, I'm just sick of this notion that Muslims are trying to push ourselves and our beliefs on everyone all the time. It's nonsense. We're not trying to convert everybody we meet. So I had to ask Justin about it. Now, I interviewed him 2 days before that ethics report came out, so he was still pretty chatty. I've been told that there's this place that's kind of like Canada's Boston, Quebec. What's going on there? What's going on with this secularism bill? What does this mean?
I disagree with it. A government shouldn't be telling anyone what they should or shouldn't wear in a free society. So I strongly disagree with that. I have been very clear that in a free society, you cannot legitimize discrimination against someone based on their religion.
So you would say you're accepting of all faiths and religions?
I think what we accept as a country needs to be defending minorities, defending people's rights.
Accepting Christianity.
Accepting Christianity,
Judaism.
accepting Judaism, accepting Islam, accepting all different. Why?
You accept Islam as the one true faith, and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the last and final messenger. Don't laugh at that part. You can't laugh at that part.
I am proudly Catholic, but I have a tremendous respect for all religions.
I'll play the long game. We have until the day of judgment.
I am Catholic.
Guys, I tried. He'll come around. Oh, I know it.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
And there are other aspects of Canada that don't fit our stereotypes. Take war. Canada doesn't really do war. In fact, a Canadian prime minister got the Nobel Peace Prize in 1957 for literally inventing UN peacekeeping, something that Canadians love bragging about through PSAs like this.
If you don't stop this, I will shoot you. I will shoot you. Will kill me. Okay, come on, shoot me. Shoot me like you shot my brother. Enough. Stop it. This is not your problem, Canadian soldier. Not your war. This is Cyprus, our problem. I'm here as a member of the United Nations Peace Force now. Both of you, go home.
That's all it takes to end a war, one Canadian man? You're telling me we could have solved the Middle East if we just airdropped in Michael Cera? He's like, guys, don't fight. Just go on a quirky date with your high school crush. Now, Canada doesn't participate directly in most conflicts, but they make a lot of money from war. In the past decade, they have helped arm regimes in Algeria, Nigeria, Egypt, Libya, Iraq, and Bahrain. But one of their biggest customers is Saudi Arabia.
The LAV-6, meant to carry troops and weapons into battle. And a Canadian company is selling them to Saudi Arabia.
Valued at $14.8 billion, the contract is the largest arms deal in Canadian history.
Okay, to be clear, that's 14.8 billion Canadian dollars, which are just like American dollars minus the pictures of slave owners. Now, it's so weird to me that this progressive, peace-loving place has a deal to sell tanks to the Saudis, especially when Trudeau's government has been so vocal about their brutality. They slammed the Saudis for the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, and Trudeau himself condemned the kingdom's human rights abuses. So I had to ask Trudeau about the arms deal, but I wanted to be tactful. I mean, I'm in the guy's office. So I had to go in with another game. Finish the sentence. Tim Hortons is?
A Canadian institution.
Nice. Finish the sentence. Kawhi Leonard should?
Should be very proud of what he accomplished in his time in Canada.
I completely disagree. Kawhi Leonard should never return to Canada because he is a traitor. That's the correct answer.
You know, people bring American sentiments onto Canadian politeness every now and then.
Finish this sentence. Canada will not sell any more weapons to Saudi Arabia, period. I'm sorry, I messed that one up. Canada will not sell any more weapons to Saudi Arabia, please. Just more of a statement.
That's a good statement. That's a good statement.
You said 9 months ago you guys would be examining it, and it takes about 3 months to study for the LSAT, so that's a pretty good examination time. You could announce it right here, right now. We're canceling the deal.
We take our...
We got it right here, wild on camera.
We take our legal responsibilities and the breaking of contracts very seriously in this country.
I'm telling you, they watch the show. Like, they really watch the show.
I don't doubt they do. I'm sure they're keeping an eye on you.
Okay, what does that mean? And what makes him so sure? And is it weird that he tried to schedule our next interview in Istanbul? Now, you might be thinking, so what? People sell weapons to the Saudis the same way musicians work with Chris Brown. Right? Outside, they're like, this is bad. No. Then his album drops, and everyone's on it, and you're like, Sufjan Stevens? You roll with Chris Brown? But no issue more clearly shows the two sides of Canada than its treatment of the environment. Now, when we think of Canada, we think of pristine wilderness, mountains, rivers, pastures, and herds of Seth Rogans in their natural habitat. I know, they're beautiful. It's mating season, look at them. Now, Canada sells itself as a leader on climate change, but it also has the world's third largest oil reserves, most of it in the Alberta tar sands. And just like a wild Seth Rogen, tar sands oil is pretty dirty. It's gunky, it's mixed in with sand, and refining it causes a ton of pollution. Canada's tar sands are also really far north, which is why Canada has so many pipelines. One in particular has been at the center of a long and contentious battle.
The Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion will see a twin pipeline follow the same route as an existing one from Edmonton to the west coast.
The expansion would increase the flow to 890,000 barrels per day, causing a rise in oil tanker traffic in BC waters from about 60 to more than 400 per year.
The Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion is super controversial. The Conservatives say that the pipeline will create tens of thousands of jobs in Canada. They even have their own mascot.
I'm very honored that I'd be able to come here to Ottawa to contribute my say as just an average roughneck. I'm not a guy from Calgary in a suit, I'm a roughneck. I'm a guy who has a job in Alberta whose livelihood's been threatened. Okay,
they want people to take oil workers seriously, and they thought the best way to do that was drop a male stripper down a chimney? So, while the pro-pipeline side is showing off Canadian Weird Al, climate activists have been fighting it for years. And a big reason they've supported Trudeau is that he has been a one-man PR team for Mother Nature.
When it comes to our environment, we Canadians get it.
It shouldn't have taken this long for a Canadian government to get real about climate change.
There is no country on the planet that can walk away from the challenge and reality of climate change.
My man, that's the Trudeau you take home to meet your folks. I'll introduce him to Najmi and Seema. But that's not what he said a few months earlier to a room full of oil execs.
No country would find 173 billion barrels of oil in the ground and just leave them there.
Does he think you can just do both of those things? Because we did the math, and there's no overlap. The point is, it's hard to know which Trudeau we're gonna get. And last year, he was put to the test. After years of lawsuits and PR disasters, the company that owned the Trans Mountain Pipeline threatened to cancel the project entirely. So Trudeau had to pick a side.
Good afternoon. A bombshell announcement from Ottawa today. The Trudeau government is nationalizing the Trans Mountain Pipeline.
The government has announced it will buy the pipeline for $4.5 billion.
The Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion is a vital strategic interest to Canada, but construction will go ahead.
JT, how'd you go from Al Gore to Rex Tillerson? His government spent $4.5 billion to buy the pipeline, pretty much guaranteeing that it would be built. So with all that in mind, I had to talk pipeline. Now, you've stepped up as a leader on the world stage in the fight against climate change. How does the Trans Mountain Pipeline fit into that vision?
Okay. The alternative to a modern pipeline is oil by rail or oil by trucks, because our society continues to need oil right now. And that's why we're putting all the profits from the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion into the transition towards cleaner energy.
Okay, this is where I'm not following you. You say you're going to fight climate change by producing more oil?
No, We're not talking about any more. We're talking about actually exporting it more efficiently, where we'll actually get a better price that will allow us to invest more in the transition.
Basically, he's saying that the pipeline will help ship oil more efficiently, which is true. But he's also saying that the pipeline will not result in Canada producing more oil, which is not true. First of all, tar sands oil production has been booming since 2006. And if new pipelines are built, that number is projected to go up another 46% by 2035. More pipelines almost always mean more oil. Earlier this year, Alberta forced oil companies to produce less because there wasn't enough pipeline capacity. And Canadian oil producers said that they expect to produce less specifically because they didn't have new pipelines. But I feel like it's pulling in two different directions. It's like me saying, I'm gonna lose weight by eating more Kit Kats.
No.
And I love Kit
It is
Kats.
saying that the only way to protect our climate is to make sure that there is a growing economy at the same time, and the only way to actually grow the economy is to protect our environment at the same time.
I'm just saying, what you're describing sounds like trying to whiten your teeth by drinking wine at every meal.
No, it doesn't. We are not going to be polluting more. We are going to be putting a price on pollution, and we are going to move forward in a way that a lot of people choose to make fun of by saying, oh, you can't do both at the same time. Canadians know you can protect the environment and grow the economy at the same time.
Canadians also think you can wear denim on top and bottom at the same time. That's not a good enough reason. Now look, Canada has put a price on carbon pollution, and that's a good thing because it can drive down emissions. But it's not the full story. This year, Trudeau's taxes on carbon went into effect, but they exempt oil and gas companies from paying taxes on 80% of their emissions. That'd be like putting a price on looking like an old Italian woman, but exempting Mick Jagger. He's got the market on lock. Now, on top of all of this, Canada isn't on track at all for its Paris climate goals. We looked at 5 different studies that all confirm this. And according to the Canadian government's own report, even if Canada's most aggressive emissions proposals were in place, they would still fail to meet Paris. Now look, no one is doing great on their Paris report card. But Trudeau sold himself hard as the guy who would get it done. And the problems with the pipeline aren't just environmental. Trans Mountain, which would cross tribal land, is also opposed by many of Canada's Indigenous peoples. When Trudeau ran in 2015, he made them a promise.
Ultimately, even though governments grant permits, only communities grant permission.
Would no mean no under your government?
Absolutely.
That all sounds great, but after he was elected, several Indigenous communities refused to give consent. And Trudeau said they couldn't veto the pipeline, which is confusing. With respect to pipelines, you said getting consent from Indigenous communities is important, but when you were asked if consent is a veto, you said,
no.
Consent isn't a veto. Sounds like the worst Tinder bio I have ever read. Are you sure you want to stick with that?
When we're talking about engaging with Indigenous peoples, it is important to engage in responsibly and positively, but at the same time, to know that there are always going to be a broad number of opinions and perspectives within that community. We need to respond in a substantive way to their concerns and show that we're listening and working with them in real partnership. That's what reconciliation looks like.
I don't think that is what reconciliation looks like, especially if you ask the pipeline's Indigenous opponents.
You either respect us or you don't.
They have decided to willfully violate their constitutional duties and obligations. Why doesn't the Prime Minister just say the truth and tell the Indigenous peoples that he doesn't give a fuck about their rights?
That was an elected official in Parliament. Can you imagine that happening in Congress? Dick Durbin is like, Trump, you need to back the fuck down from these tariffs. Otherwise, I will punch Ted Cruz in the egg sac. Don't push me, McConnell. Now look, I understand. We all love Canada. I know it. None of you guys wanted to hear any of this. I might as well have done a 20-minute takedown of Tom Hanks. But there are realities about Canada and Trudeau that we cannot ignore. But the problem is Trudeau's main opposition is the Conservative Party. And they're worse on almost every issue that I have mentioned tonight. The last time the Conservatives were in power, they cut spending on refugees. They withdrew Canada from the Kyoto Climate Accords, and labeled groups like Greenpeace violent extremists. Because we all know that classic violent extremist move, asking for 30 seconds of your time. Now, make no mistake, Canada is still a progressive country and a proving ground for whether progressive policies can work. So when I went to Ottawa, that's what I was most concerned about. You guys are this society that has cracked so many things that we're struggling with. Healthcare, immigration, what else?
Lots of things. The integration, multiculturalism in a way that keeps vibrant differences.
Exactly. You guys are this amazing progressive country that's almost like the civilization from the future. You guys are like Wakanda. You guys are like Wakanada.
Except we're not covered by a protective bubble that nobody can see.
So minus the bubble, I'm in Wakanada. I'm speaking to the leader of Wakanada, the son of the former leader of Wakanada, which makes you
the Prime Minister of Canada, because we had
You're White Panther.
I'm like 1/16th Malaysian.
Sure.
Oh, no, I'm 32nd.
We don't have to get into the Elizabeth Warren math. You are White Panther. Fans around the world are looking to White Panther and Wakanada. And can you imagine if we found out that this precious resource, vibranium, is causing climate change, and White Panther was like, what, we're not gonna just leave hundreds of millions of dollars of vibranium in the ground. I would be like, T'Challa, no.
You'd be shouting at the screen. You'd be in a movie if you were doing that.
Don't do it, T'Challa. Look, I know there are a lot of Canadians watching this thinking, well, come on, Hassan. Trudeau isn't perfect, but if you care about the environment, you know he's the only realistic option in this election. And look, I understand that. But at some point, political pragmatism has to reckon with the reality of climate change. You can't negotiate with science. You can't meet it halfway. Shit is melting fast, especially in Canada, which is warming at twice the planet's average rate. So if Trudeau's gonna be the best choice on carbon emissions, he'll have to step up and be the climate hero that he is claimed to be. Look, White Panther, I know you're watching. Remember the old words of wisdom. With great cheekbones comes great responsibility. Wakanada forever.